Hello guys! Most political experts agree that 2025 is going to be very dynamic and also very unpredictable. As an ordinary Ukrainian, I like the dynamics inside the Russian Federation as our Ukrainian drones keep demilitarizing and defeating this evil, agonizing empire. This week was truly hellish for the Russian Federation as Ukrainian drones reached a lot of their military objects. For example, during just one day, 12 Russian regions experienced what is that to be actively and successfully demilitarized. This is a breakthrough taking into account how many Russian oil refineries were set on fire during just one week, and I'm glad that we have returned back to this beautiful and very effective tactics. I don't know why it was paused, perhaps some of our allies asked for that, but please let Ukraine defend itself. This is vital for the safety and security of the world, let alone simply just. So anyway, lots of oil refineries are still on fire as I record this video, and Gazprom and other super important Russian corporations and banks are getting ready to collapse. All of that in the context of the very important political event as people around the world are waiting for the new, actually not completely new American President Donald Trump. His inauguration is going to happen tomorrow, and we all listen very carefully the messages from his new team, and they are very contradictory. So let's discuss the most important events of this week from an ordinary Ukrainian perspective, but a very Ukrainian and very experienced Ukrainian perspective. And unfortunately, in this very turbulent world, you may need my war and hybrid warfare experience. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of Russia and also protect yourself against the hybrid or real warfare, subscribe. We discuss all of that on the channel. And there are always a lot of useful advice in the comments because we have a great community. So let's start with this hellish week for Russian oil refineries. Many of them, dozens of them, were on fire because of the work of the Ukrainian drones. I love it because this strategy is very effective. Russia desperately needs oil for export and, what is worse, for fueling its military machine, its bombers, its tanks. And by destroying these oil refineries specifically closer to the front lines, we actually save hundreds, if not thousands, of Ukrainian lives. Most importantly, Ukrainian drones reach deep inside Russian RIA. So we are not talking just about regions that border with Ukraine, but republics like Tatarstan. And during this week, Ukrainian drones visited objects like 1,100 kilometers deep inside the Russian RIA, demonstrating to the world and to the new American president that Russia is super vulnerable, weak, a very toxic bully that must be defeated. It is not the time to appease and let go the greatest world criminal and mafioso, Putin. So during this week, a lot of oil refineries were on fire. They continue burning, some of them, and detonating, specifically in Angels, in Kazan, and many more. And I was actually happy that there were so many of them. I had to make lists, and still there were some names that I left out. And this is bad for already targeted Russian oil refining industry, especially after the new US sanctions that were recently signed and led to the fact that more and more countries, which were at least Russia's economic allies like India and China, don't want to buy Russian oil and let Russian oil tankers into their ports. It is already happening, and Russia is losing money. They do not produce anything competitive. They are like dig and sell economy, only raw resources. And when these processes are complicated, they keep losing a lot of money that they desperately need to pretend that everything goes according to the plan when it is not. And definitely the best illustration of the state of Russia is the state of Gazprom, because Gazprom was once the richest and the most successful Russian corporation that is now, once again, I do love this term, gas traded, and loses its income, and most importantly is prepared to fire 40% of workers in its headquarters. What if not a total failure this gesture is? And believe me, nobody wanted to take it in Gazprom headquarters. They simply do not have a choice. And Russia do not have a choice but collapse. Subscribe to witness that, and also subscribe and share these videos to demonstrate your solidarity with the people of Ukraine. We are the ones defending ourselves, international laws, and good old world order, which actually helped survive many generations. So Gazprom suffered from sanctions on their bank, Gazprom Bank. It happened like a month ago and was very vividly illustrated by the fall of the Russian ruble. Then Russian central bank does everything it can to artificially slow down the inflation, but it does not work. Then sanctions hit Gazprom oil. And right now they are closing their offices in Brussels, in Tokyo, and once very successful Russian company turns into a total failure. 50% of it is owned by the state, 50 by Russian oligarchs, which is actually the state in Russia. And all in all, it's an illustration of the reality inside Russia, because they keep lying to the newspapers on press conferences, and unfortunately many people who come from this normal healthy democracies believe that if Russia says they feel like that, or if Russia says they have that much money, it's true. No, there is nothing true about Russia. They keep saying that Putin is a legitimate president, and he was elected back in 2000, so 24 years. Have you, let's say honestly, do you know any president who is the leader of the country for 24 years and it's legitimate? I don't. So anyway, Gazprom is collapsing, and many experts believe that Russians will do everything to save it, but no. Perhaps their processes that have already started there are irreversible, and one of these processes will lead to the freezing of people's deposits. I have a separate video on that. I will connect it, and this is actually huge. It's not the first time that Russians lose their savings. It happened in 1991, in 1998, all caused by hyperinflation and sick management. And that's why I am sure most of the population is in panic. And well, in this case, they are right, but they actually did nothing to stop the war. They did nothing to stop Putin. And now they get these consequences. Unfortunately, they live by the rule that we are small people, and we clearly see that. I hope one day in 100 years there will be something like civil society in Russia, but it is our great responsibility to defeat, demilitarize the Kremlin, and then work to demonstrate these people that democracy, respect to human life actually exist. And no, this is not weakness. This is actually what you want in your life, to be safe and happy. Subscribe to be safe and happy and learn some useful tips in this turbulent world from a Ukrainian that actually knows a lot. It was not my choice, but sometimes I feel that I need start giving advice to people living in different corners of the world, how to be prepared for a war or conflict. Because once again, back in 2021, I did not believe it was possible. There were no logical reasons. But when you have insane people like Putin, totally uncontrollable, Everything is possible. Unfortunately, unpunished evil grows, and some other authoritarian leaders feel inspired. And that is why it is so important not to appease Putin, not to negotiate with him, but actually punish him and punish him very, very severely. I hope that the new president of the United States, Donald Trump, understands that or will understand that. And without any evaluation of his work and future steps, I can tell you that many people in the comments agree that right now the United States of America is the center of uncertainty in the world. Uncertainty is not something very bad. It can actually turn out to be very good. And as a Ukrainian, I try to find positive messages. I also come across negative messages. But personally, I have drawn a conclusion that nothing is decided yet, nothing is certain right now. But I do believe that Trump will understand that it's super important to remain strong. We remain strong and determined to defeat Russia. We see its weaknesses. We actually demonstrate its weaknesses with 12 Russian regions on fire, explosions, drones traveling deep inside the area, Russian economy collapsing, preparation to freeze deposits. Oh my God, this is actually a perfect time to end this Putin's regime. And this is a perfect time for various business opportunities. This is a perfect time to demonstrate the world who is the boss. And that is my central hope as to Trump and his vision of the future. We all remember he promised to end the war in 24 hours, in 48 hours. Right now, General Kellogg, potential representatives during this negotiation process, they all speak about 100 days, half a year, and this makes me feel better. And you know why? Not because I don't want a quick ending of this war, but I'm a realist and I understand it cannot end quickly unless like you drop something very big and very bad. So it's obvious that's a long process, and it demonstrates that they have better understanding of this war right now. And it is definitely going to be very complex. What I don't like is that Trump talks about meeting with Putin as if Putin is not a war criminal, but just like a guy who needs to be explained something. No, he is a war criminal responsible for tragedies and like lots of very bad things, not just in Ukraine, in Georgia, in Moldova, in Belarus, that is hijacked by this dictator. So it's no way that we can legitimize him back and break this isolation or take away sanctions. This would be a tragedy, but not just for Ukraine, but for the world and for the United States as consequences, because then Russia will demonstrate to China that no, nobody keeps the word in the Western world. They are super weak. They are ready to abandon each other, and we can actually eat them piece by piece. Personally, I believe this is not going to happen. And another thing that I can promise you is that Ukraine will continue fighting no matter what. I believe many of you remember the start of the full-scale invasion and how many of our friends and future allies totally did not believe that Ukraine can stop Putin, that we can prevent total occupation of our country. They were advising Zelensky to leave the country, to become a president in exile, and they were all giving Ukraine 3 days. And after 3 years of war, we have Kursk region with Ukrainian forces in it. We have Russian regions constantly on fire. We have destroyed up to 20% of their main oil refining industry. And we will continue defeating and demilitarizing this agonizing empire, the last empire of the 21st century, and they do not survive in this place and in this time. So subscribe to get the updates from Ukraine, a very important country right now, and I'm always very sincere with my tips and advice because I'm a civilian. I'm not a political expert, I'm not a military expert, I'm an ordinary Ukrainian living in very extraordinary times. Join me on X. We need to stay united. On Blue Sky, our community is growing there, on Threads and Instagram, and we have a nice Discord community. Check the merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine, and all the links that you need are in the description of this video. Please be careful of scammers. I never invite you for private conversations on any other social media. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, but most importantly, thank you for standing with Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!